Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tanya Live. We are thrilled that you're joining us. And before we get started, we will give tzedakah. So if everyone could grab a coin and say these words, Idel tzedakah shemikarev esesagula. Put your coin in a freshly tzedakah box. And we always start by saying Tehillim. So I'm going to ask everyone if they would like to put down names of people that they would like us to pray for. As well, we will have them in mind when we learn Tanya today. It will be in their merit for Refuah Shlema. We have Yehudit bat Sarah, Yaakov Moshe ben Necha, Ari Faivish ben Ita, Chana bas Rivka, Perach bat Sarah, Yehudit bat Perach. All these people should have a complete and immediate Refuah Shlema. We should be out of the skullas even before Purim. Okay, we'll start with chapter Chaf. Good morning, Rosalie. Good morning, Corinne. Definitely put down anyone that needs to have Tehillim. We'll mention their name. Okay, here we go. Lamanatseach Mizmar le David. Yancha Adonai biyom tzara. Yisagevcha Shem Elehei Yaakov. Yishlach Ezracha Mikodesh u'mitzion Yisadeka. Yiskar kol mechosecha v'alascha yidash nesela. Yiten lecha chavavecha v'chol atzascha yimale. Nirana b'shuasecha u'v'shem Eloheinu nidgol. Yimalei Adonai kol mashalosecha. Ata yadati ki Yoshia Adonai mishicho yaneu mishmekotcha b'gvuros yesha yimino. Eila v'recha ve'ela v'asusim v'anachnu b'shem Adonai Eloheinu naskir. Hema karu v'nafolu v'anachnu kamnu v'nisodad Adonai Hoshia Hamelech Yanenu v'yom karenu. And for all those that put down names, Chaya bat Sima should have Refuah Shlema, Chaim ben Sarabela should have Refuah Shlema, and anyone else that joins that feels like we need to dive in for a loved one, please feel free to jot their name down so we will all see it and have them in mind as we study Torah. So before we get on with our day, I call this our virtual sisterhood. Thank you, Corinne. I would love everyone to put down in a word or two, how are you feeling this morning? We are in the month of Adar. Purim is a few days away. Yes, it's cloudy and it's still snowing. Just curious how you're feeling. Please share with us your mood before we get on to our Tanya class. I like to get feedback from our sisterhood. Okay, good morning, Marilyn. Okay, if anybody wants to jot that down. Shelly says, Baruch Hashem. Good to hear that. Okay, one of the teachers walked in this morning and she says, I need sunshine. Okay, Corinne says, okay. Chana says, hopeful. Barbara, tell us how you're feeling this morning. Be good to have everyone's feedback so we know what audience is being tired but happy. Good, good, Rosalie. Baruch Hashem. Hopeful. Good, Corinne, good. Francesca in Italy says hi. Francesca, please tell us in the comments what's the weather in Italy. Okay, we're definitely getting towards spring. Sanchez says tired but good to go. Michelle's grateful. Wonderful. Okay, Karen, good morning. And Leah, good morning. Tell us how you're feeling today so we could get the vibe, the energy in our virtual sisterhood Tanya class. Okay, so we are still up to Francesca. Oh no. Arlene, good morning. Great. Already celebrated our 46th anniversary and we are healthy. Sarah, you're right. So much to be grateful for. Okay, Francesca has 18 degrees in Milan and it's spring. Beautiful. That means we're not far behind. Okay, wonderful. So thank you for sharing and Mazel Tov, Sarah, on your 46th. That's beautiful, and we should only share simchas together on our group. Okay, we are up to chapter 43 in Tanya. We started last week, we were talking about the awe that one feels in a relationship. And we said that awe means respect, right? Remember, give me a thumbs up if you remember we said that. Becky says, Baruch Hashem, healthy. Good morning, Israel. Welcome. So we spoke about, in the last few weeks, we were talking about the awe that one experiences in a relationship. And many people say, is awe fear? Is awe fear? When we talk about Yirat Hashem, are we talking about having a fear of God? Is that the kind of Judaism that you know? That you light your candles on Shabbat because you're scared of God? Are we scared we're going to burn? Is that what being Jewish is about? Absolutely not. And I can't imagine growing up in a home or in a community that told you to be scared of God because you're fear of punishment. No, no, and no. Thank you. Awe is respect. And we have a relationship with Hashem. And we know that in a marriage, there has to be that awe, which is respect, before there could be love. And I gave the analogy a few weeks ago about the fellow that was coming home to celebrate his wife's birthday, and he loved his wife, so he bought her so many roses. But he showed up 3 hours late without even giving his wife notice. That's when there's no respect in relationship. So love has to be built on awe, on respect. And in a relationship with God, it's the same way. We love Hashem. And it's like, oh, I sit in bed and I talk about how much I love God. But there has to be an awe. You have to get up. You have to wash Negelwasser. You have to daven in a siddur. I know a lot of people say, I pray with my heart. Do you know, if you're in a relationship, in a marriage, or even in a relationship with children, just feeling the love with your children is not enough. It has to be expressed in their love language. I'll give you an example. You can give me a thumbs up if this resonates with you. So, in the love language theory written by Dr. Gary Chapman, he talks a lot about the 5 love languages and relationship with children as well. So he was once speaking to a client and he says, do you let your children know that you love them? And this client happened to be a farmer and his children worked with him on the farm. So he says, of course my children know I love them. It's so obvious. And the doctor said, well, how do you know it's obvious? How do you know they are receiving that message? Because I tell it all the time. So the doctor said to this farmer, why don't you go home and speak to your sons and ask them, do you know that dad loves you? So this farmer rolled his eyes, but he was part of a course. So he said, yeah, sure. He goes home and he sees his little 11-year-old. His name was Jerry. Sorry, his name was Lanny. He says, Lanny, you know dad loves you? And Lanny goes, wow, of course I know you love me. He goes, how do you know I love you? He says, because whenever you come home from the farm, we box and we do all kinds of fun tagging games and I jump on you and you throw me off your back and we wrestle and it's great. He goes, oh, okay, that's good. I didn't realize that's how you know I love you. Then he goes to his teenage son. His name is Buck and he's 17 years old. He says, hey, Buck, gotta speak to you. Do you know that dad loves you? And Buck lowers his eyes and he goes, it's funny you're saying that, but there are so many times I actually wish you loved me. I don't know that you love me. And the messages that I get are telling me otherwise. So the farmer goes, what are you talking about? I mean, I support you. I gave you a beautiful home. You have a job in the farm. I tell you, you're the greatest guy. He goes, He says, last week, for example, I was down farming some of the beautiful vegetables and the wheel came off of my wagon and I sent Lanny and I said, hey, Lanny, go call dad. My wheel broke. I need some help. And when Lanny came back, he gave me a message. And the message was, Dad thinks you could do it yourself. You're a big boy. And I sat down on the ground and I said to myself, nah, my dad doesn't love me. If he loved me, when I asked him to help, he would help. That's, my friend, called the love languages. When we have a relationship with a spouse, we have to speak their language. And if you want, you can go into Chabad.org and search Goldie Plotkin. And my husband and I do a whole hour's lecture on understanding the love language between you and your spouse. But what about your relationship with God, your creator? Does he know that you love him? And there are many times that you call out to God and you go, God, you love me? Do you even care about me? Why in the world are you making me lose my income? Or why in the world did you just make me trip on the ice and now I'm in a cast? And we ask to Hashem, gotta talk my language, God. Talk my language, right? We ask God to give us what we need. And it's the same reciprocal way. We have to tell God that we love him. And that is through our mitzvot. That is through prayer. When I give tzedakah in the morning, that's God's love language. And when God gives me a healthy day, that's my love language. And when God gives me nachas for my children, that's my love language. And sometimes God tells us things, or things happen to us, they don't resonate with us. And we turn to God and we go, but why? And then we know that God is telling us something. It's just maybe not the language we understand. And we need to dig deep and find out what is the message. So last week we spoke about a lower level of God, which is fear. You know, the eye that watches, and I taught you about the prayer, Shiviti Hashem Lenegdi Samid, that Hashem is always watching over me. And when we say that prayer, we know that God is watching. And that is why it is the lower level of awe, because we know that there's an eye that sees, there's an ear that hears. And go back to last week's class, we gave a lot of different examples of the lower level yira, the lower level of awe. But today, I want to talk about the higher level. The higher level. So it's not like the story of the Chafetz Chaim, which is a lower level yira. He was sitting in a wagon, and his wagon driver was very hungry, and they passed this luscious apple orchard. And the driver says to the Chafetz Chaim, a big sage, he says, listen, I'm just going to jump off and grab an apple. If someone sees me, shout, and I'll just run back to the wagon and we'll be off in a moment. Chafetz Chaim was not impressed, because what was the man going to do? He was going to steal apples, right? This guy jumps off, and as he's about to grab an apple off the tree, the Chafetz Chaim screams, he's watching, someone's watching. The farmer drops the apple, jumps into the wagon, beats the horse, and they're off. But he turns around and he goes, huh? Who's watching? I don't see anybody watching. Hey, Rabbi, who was watching? And the Chafetz Chaim points up. He goes, God. God's watching everything. And you know you're not allowed to steal. So why'd you take that apple? God's watching. And that's a lower level, and that works. It still works because we're human. And I told you what a great Talmudic scholar taught us, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who lived in the days of the Romans. And he said to us, imagine if you can have the fear of heaven like you have the fear of people. And we all know we act one way in our house, and when a guest walks in, suddenly we're chirpy and sweet and kind and lovely and bubbly. What's that? What does that mean? That's a lower level awe. It's like we're scared of what humans will think of us. But today, I want to talk about the higher level, because I think those of us who are learning Tanya already for about a year, we already are really deep in this Kabbalah. We're really good at this. Okay, I'm kidding. We need to learn maybe another 50 years. But we're on the route, on the trip. Now imagine, you're standing on a beach somewhere in Miami Beach, Florida, okay? I mean, we could dream, right? Or you're standing on a beautiful beach in Milan. I don't know if Milan has beaches. I know Cinque Terre has gorgeous beaches, right? Francesca, I was there. So imagine we're standing on a beach and you look at the vast beach of millions and millions of pieces of sand, and you look at the water of the ocean, and it's huge and never ending. And you look up at the sky, the blue sky, and you look at yourself and you go, wow, I'm such a small little person in this huge, vast world. And then imagine if you get into an airplane overlooking this little scope of the beach, and you see a little person, that's you, but you're now in an airplane's view. But that's still not seeing the grand scope of the world, because you know that you are part of just the earth. And if you made it out of the earth and you saw galaxies and you realize that we are only one little galaxy, part of a huge, huge universe with 50 galaxies. And that one little person down standing on that beach is like a piece of a sand in God's great, majestic world. That is awe. That, my friends, is awe of who our Creator is. And that huge Creator created you. You, this little us, this little sand. God created us and said, I want a relationship. And you go, me? Tiny little me, this little kernel of sand compared to the 50 galaxies? I'm nothing. But God says, no. We have to say every morning that God created the world because of me. And He wants a relationship with Goldie and Dorit and Randy and Karen and Rosalie and Francesca and Sancha and Hannah and Tanya, Pauline and Clara, and I'm going to go down, and Dorit, all of us, and Shelly. Hashem wants a relationship with each one of us. And Hashem says, you are worth, and Arlene, you are worth everything. This entire world of huge galaxies and planets, but it's all about you. And when we think about that in the morning, and we wake up and take our first breath and we say, Moda'ani, that is a higher level of awe. And we don't need to see any eyes watching over me. And I grab my Tehillim, Korean, of course you. And we open up our Tehillim and you go, I'm not going to daven now because someone's watching me. I'm not giving tzedakah because I have to, because God is watching me. I am davening because I am in awe of my Creator. I love Hashem so much. I need to thank Him for every breath I take, for every move I make, for every person I can see, for every sound of the birds and the music. That is why I want to see a thumbs up if every single one of you feels that awe this morning. As we're talking and as we're sharing, tell me if you're feeling that awe, that love, that intense love to Hashem, the Creator. And it's not because Hashem is watching over me and I'm scared. It's not because I'm worried He's not going to bless me. Of course Hashem will bless you. Hashem created you. You are His child. You are His one and only child. And in a world of billions of people, you are still His one and only child. You know, our tradition tells us that we should look as a relationship to God like an only child born to older parents. Can you imagine? You hear about these people in their 50s and they gave birth to their first child. You know that love? Can you imagine that love? That's the love Hashem has. And if you've never heard this before, that's because this is the gift of Chassidus. Yeah, this is the gift of Tanya. And when people say, what did Tanya give to the world? This upbeat, positive, exuberant experience with our Creator is exactly what Tanya is all about. Because we can't live in a world that is just post-Holocaust. We cannot raise our children that we are just Jewish because what the Nazis tried to do to us. You marry a Jew because of what Hitler tried to do to us? Is that why we're living Judaism? No, I don't think so. We are living Jewish because we love our Torah, because we love our Creator, because we love our traditions, because we love Purim and Shabbat and Passover, because we love the idea of giving charity, of sharing what we have, because we love identifying with the heritage. That's why we do it. Not because we're scared, and not because we have to give back to the world to retaliate for what the Hitlers and the Stalins did to our people. Absolutely not. And I tell you this because there are many children in our generation that do not want to identify with a religion that is the underdog. If our children keep a mitzvah or are told to keep a tradition because we are the underdog, because we have to keep this religion, otherwise it's going to evaporate or it's going to be erased, your kids are like, duh, I'm part of a winning team. Mom, I'm making a 6-figure salary. I'm not part of the losers. So it's time now in 2021 to teach our families that Judaism is a winner religion. We are the people of the book. We are the people of winners. We are the nation that has given the world everything, tradition. We have given the people today kindness, empathy, awareness, respect, honesty. This is who we are. We are people of the book that transforms and transfers over the godliest message of all. We are a people of the book because we are godly. Not because we are persecuted, not because we have been beaten, not because of our Mesirat Nefesh. That too, we will not negate. That is our history. Listen, I came from a family that suffered so much in Siberia, and I'm sure every single one of you has a story. Every single one of you has a background. We have suffered a lot, but we're living now in a very emancipated generation. And it's time to do a mind shift. Let's do a paradigm shift. It's a new trajectory now for our people. We are winners. We are strong. We have Israel. We have a Torah. And we are transmitting that to our children because of joy, not because of fear. And we said, no more oi esesfer chazayna yid. No more of that oi. The Rebbe taught us such a strength, and anyone who came to see him walked away feeling elevated. Not like, oi, go teach your children to do good because otherwise we're going to be lost. You know, the UJA many years ago, it was a campaign when the Jews were stuck in Russia, and they came out with this brilliant campaign. Leave an empty chair at your Seder to remember the Jews in Russia. And the Rebbe laughed at this, and the Rebbe said, really? Is that the best you can do for the Jews in Russia? Leave an empty chair? The Rebbe said, put a chair, but fill it with a Jew. Go find a Jew that wouldn't have a place for the Seder and put him in the seat. What good is an empty chair? An empty chair gets involved in the Seder? An empty chair is going to get you a motivated Jew? Shelley, that's true. Ella Shelley says, I think it's because we went through all these challenges and won, and that we are winners. Exactly. We are winners, but we were winners even before. Think about what Viktor Frankl, in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. He never let himself become a loser. Even in Auschwitz, even when he was being beaten, he said they never took away his dignity and his morality, because in his mind, he saw himself surviving, thriving, and he came up with the whole logotherapy, which was a result of his experience in Auschwitz. But he never let himself become a loser. And you speak to so many Jews who survived, and they said, yeah, maybe the Nazis had the guns, and maybe they had the black boots, but they were the pigs. They were the lowlifes. They were the animals murdering. We Jews, we were the ones that had a God. We had a purpose. We had a why. And when you have a why, you can find the how. That's all about the Jewish philosophy of winning. And you are so right, Shelley. We are survivors, and now we are winners. And now we have to make sure that we give that over to our children. Our children must not see that it's hard. And sometimes we go, oh, well, kosher meat's expensive. Let me give you something that you, as a takeaway from today. Every single penny we earn is allocated to us by God for the things that we need. And when we need to keep kosher, because we're Jewish, there will be money for kosher. There might not be extra money for a fancy cashmere sweater, but you'll have the money you need for your kosher food. If you need money for your Jewish children's education, you will have that money. And if that extra money comes your way and it's not used for education, it'll probably be for a stuffed toilet or a broken fender or a leaked roof, or the money will go somewhere. If you use your money for kosher food, for buying good mezuzahs, for having a delicious Shabbos, for buying better food for Shabbos, then, okay, Freya, if you buy kosher food and it's more expensive, right? A challah. You could buy a loaf of bread, but then you buy a challah. And you think to yourself, should I buy a nicer challah? Of course, it's Shabbat. And our tradition tells us that every penny you put in for Shabbat, you'll get back. And I've seen it in my life. I've seen 36 years of being a Rebbetzin. We raised 8 children, sent all them to Jewish school, expensive tuition. And we thought, well, we're not going to get away with the summer and just sending them for a non-Jewish camp. We send them to a Jewish camp, an overnight camp. And guess what? We never had to be evacuated from our home or evicted from our home. We always had money to pay for our bills. We had exactly what we needed and some more. Hashem gives you what you need. You make this conversation with Hashem. You say, Hashem, I want to go kosher. You'll have exactly what you need. You know, listen to any of these motivational speakers and they tell you, if you put it out there, you'll get it. This is the Jewish theory. If you have this positive feeling, you say to Hashem, I want to go kosher, I know it's expensive, I know how to buy new dishes. Hashem gives you exactly what you need to buy the new dishes, and just believe it. Don't second guess it. Don't be grumpy, but say, I know it will. And you speak to all the millionaires out there who have this philosophy. They've had that vision board, and they cut out all these pieces. They said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be a bestseller. I'm going to make it in the New York Times. I'm going to be at the top on the Amazon list. I have the motivation. I'm going to do it. And they visualize. And guess what? Their vision comes true. That is how we live as a Jew. We wake up in the morning, we say, we know Hashem, it's going to be great. I'm going to do my mitzvahs, and it's going to be fine. And I'm going to go shopping and buy the best shalach manis. And I'm going to buy the nicest meal for my Purim Seudah. And Hashem responds. Hashem responds because kamayim hapanim el panim. What you give off to the universe is what you get back. When you give off positivity, when you give off assurance, when you give off a self-esteem, that is what you are going to get back. So we could be the underdog and say, oh, I am a loser, everything I touch is bad. Well, you know what? You've just made your bed. But if you wake up in the morning and you go, wow, Modani, I know Hashem's with me. I know it's going to be good. I'm not concerned. I know it's going to be great. And that is how we create this feeling of awe. Of Hashem, I know you're in charge. I know you're going to do it. I'm going to put it out there, and you're going to respond in kind. I want to conclude with a story, a fascinating, beautiful story. The story was told over by Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson. He says he was at a Pesach resort and he was speaking to a group of people, a big audience at the hotel. And he shares the story and he says, there's a story that I heard about the Chafetz Chaim. He says, there was a young boy that unfortunately drifted off the path of Judaism. And he got involved with all kinds of different friends, different than what his family and his community were involved with. And the principal of the school was very upset with this young boy. We'll call him David. And he said to David, you're very disillusioned with Judaism. You're disillusioned with the Torah. I want you to meet a great scholar, and maybe he will give you insight into your tradition. So David said, all right, whatever. I don't believe in this stuff, but I'll go. And he sort of shrugged it off, laughed it off, rolled his eyes like teenagers are wont to do. And he goes to see the Chafetz Chaim. The story, of course, happened many, many, many years ago. And he comes into the Chafetz Chaim's office, a great rabbi, a great scholar. And he's sitting there for about 20 minutes. And then he walks out. And then Rabbi Jacobson says, I don't know what happened at the end. I know that this boy turned around, but we don't know what happened in that office. We don't know what the Chafetz Chaim said that really turned David on. And then a man in the audience, an elderly man, raises his hand and says, Rabbi Jacobson, is it okay with you if I share the end of the story? And the audience goes, what? And he says, I was that young boy, David. I was in the Chafetz Chaim office. Do you want to know what he said? And everyone goes, yes! What did he do to turn you on? I mean, clearly, you're a Jew that keeps tradition. Like, what did he say to you? What was the magic word? And the elderly man says, there was no magic word. He took my hand into his. And he looked at me. And with tears in his eyes, he just said the word, Shabbos. Shabbos. And tears came down the Chafetz Chaim eyes, and they dropped on my hand. And he kept holding my hand as the tears of the word Shabbos landed on my hand. And that's all he said was Shabbos. 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 And those words and that feeling, that kavanah, and those drops on my hand made enough impression for me to want to go back to this God that is so great and wonderful, that he could bring out such emotion and such passion in the Chafetz Chaim. And I bless you, my friends, that you should feel that love and transfer it to your children. I want to invite you tonight, and I'm going to put it into the comments in a few minutes. I want to invite you tonight to 6 Rebbitzins speaking about Queen Esther, their reflections for contemporary days. It starts at 8 Eastern time. I know, Francesca, for you, it might be a little late. It might be something like 2 in the morning. But for the rest of you living in our time zone, join us 8 o'clock tonight, 6 Rebbitzins sharing their feelings, their reflections, their messages from Queen Esther. So wishing you all a wonderful day, a wonderful week. Chag Sameach, happy Purim. Thursday night, go out there, hear the Megillah. Today the shuls in your region are open. You can have larger groups. For some of you, I'm not sure how it will be happening. But tomorrow, on Friday, make sure you give tzedakah. You have a seudah, a meal. Make sure you give shalach manit at least to one. So 2 kinds of food to one friend, 2 charities, and hear the Megillah again. So the 4 mitzvahs of Purim. Wishing you a great Purim. This is a women's holiday. We rock, ladies. Go out there and have a great day.